Welcome back to today's episode of Unapologetic Living. I'm excited to have Kelly Ann. Do you go by Kelly Ann? Is that right?
Kelly, just Kelly Lynch is
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Kelly Lynch. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I know that one of the reasons that we are sharing time together today in space is because you are um, also a part of this Dark Goddess retreat that Katie Ward is putting on or facilitating here in a couple weeks. I think it's June 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yep, I'm actually on the 11th. So yeah,
Okay.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I believe she has all 4 days. Yeah.
Awesome. And so I know with Dark Goddess, I believe you're going to be leading, is it a grief circle or
Mhm.
are you? Okay.
Yep, a dark goddess grief circle is how we're phrasing it for sure.
Yeah, so I know that you lead some grief circles, right? You do some shadow workshops, and
Hmm.
then you're a yoga instructor and soundscape curator.
Yep. I also do some tarot and astrology practice as well.
Awesome. And are you also a Louisvillian?
Yes, yes. I've been
Like,
here for the past 12 years or so. Absolutely love this town.
yeah, and
A
what brought
transplant. Yeah. Oh, just a transplant from Philadelphia. I left that city as a result of my own trauma, my own loss, and came here to restart, reinvent myself, and created a career in bourbon distilling. And since then, I've been looking for something a little bit more holistic, a little bit more aligned to my true values.
so you came here, so now are you still in bourbon distilling too?
No, no, I've left that industry.
So, and my guess is that you were sort of living a parallel life, like doing a little bit of both at the same time so that you could
Yes.
fly.
Yes, exactly. And they kind of like contradicted each other there for a minute. So yeah, I'm focusing on my astrology, my tarot, and my yoga, my sound, and then of course the facilitating the grief circles and the shadow work is something I'm extremely passionate about and what I actually started facilitating about 2024 or so. I used to do them every month. We're going to get back to that schedule, I believe, or at least seasonally.
So I don't know where to start. I know that one of the themes for the Dark Goddess retreat is um, like maybe becoming friends with, right? Those the shadow side, the elements of
Mhm.
ourselves we don't necessarily want the world to see or know. Um, or if, and then, um, or if, and maybe we should just start there, right? But you
Mhm.
won't really be bringing that element to the workshop, or will they sort of be woven together?
There will be themes of shadow work in the grief circle for sure, and that is something I wholeheartedly believe in. That our shadows are not something to be repressed; they're something to be studied, to get to know in a form of like a self-study, and then to integrate into ourselves. Otherwise, this shadow behavior does manifest itself in other ways that can lead to uh, loss of relationships, loss of jobs, loss of just mistakes almost, at least in my experience. So when I'm speaking about shadow work, when I'm speaking about grief, I usually start from my own experience. They're more sharing circles where we are at least called to express our own relationship with grief in whatever capacity we feel fit in that time. This way, we're able to connect with what is hard to speak about, what is easy to speak about, maybe even shine a light of something that we did not understand or know about ourselves in that moment, and just giving each other a chance to be vulnerable, because we can really find strength in our vulnerability. That's something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and I've seen through my own story, through my own journey with grief.
So when you speak of shadows, what like because that can feel vague, maybe for the audience, what types of shadows, what types of behaviors would you I don't want to necessarily lump under, like where,
Yeah, like explain kind of what shadow is in particular.
yeah.
Yeah. So the shadow is basically any kind of unconsciously or consciously repressed aspects of our psychology, of our behavior, of our personalities. And it's basically what we don't want the world to see in one way or another. It also, again, is the house of our unconscious potential. So there's a lot of energies to work in through our shadow that we might not be able to really hone in on because we haven't allowed ourselves to explore it. We haven't allowed ourselves to study or integrate it into our normal identity, into our normal behavior. So the shadow is basically this huge capacity of our full persona that we can really access if we use certain tools and if we do it in a mindful and a very compassionate way. That's something that I strongly adhere to in my practices is being mindful and compassionate when working with our shadow, when working with grief in particular, because you're going to unlock a lot of doors. You're going to uncover some unsavory feelings. Like my grief in particular is associated with guilt. It's associated with shame, and these are feelings that I normally would repress. And if I repress those for too long, then they can come out in ways that can be unsavory. I can bring them into a relationship that I don't mean to, and then that relationship can be tarnished. I have seen that happen in my own experience before, and it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to delve into this is to heal myself and then use that as an example to help heal others.
So what might be, so you mentioned relationship, what might be an example? Can you give a more concrete example of how somebody's shadow, I don't want to say it's running the program, it's there, it's subconscious, maybe it's like you said subconscious or unconscious, right?
Yes.
Um, I guess something I guess that pops up for me is maybe an insecurity.
That could
Uh,
definitely be it.
um, uh, Around a specific that would keep one because what I heard was right this just greater potential that it's hidden in this space. So if
Mhm.
we've got to dive into that in order to right face that, look at that,
Yeah,
unpack it.
exactly. Exactly. Um, for example, and at least for me, for an example of that is writing. I repressed my desire and my talent for writing for about 15 years, and recently tapped into it when I experienced a traumatic event. Afterwards, I used writing. I used creative writing in particular to kind of work through some things, and it was incredibly powerful. Again, I was really able to connect with that side, that talent that I was insecure about. That was an insecurity of mine. Maybe I was afraid of my thoughts and my feelings being out there, of being vulnerable, of being it on the page. Maybe I was afraid of what I would uncover. Certain memories, certain revelations through the experiences that I have had. Seeing them on paper, it can be quite overwhelming at times. But that's kind of how we can work through it is by putting a form to that overwhelming shadow, because that's how shadows can be viewed sometimes. They can be overcoming, they can be overcompassing this dark cloud, if you will. Like grief, I use that as an example of grief. It can really burden us, almost this heavy weight sitting on top of us. But if we're able to share it, if we're able to express it in whatever way we feel called to, if that's writing, if that's through singing, if that's through music, if that's through dancing, whatever have you, we can put some form to this mass that really feels so intangible. And through that, we can then define it and we can work through it, we can work with it in terms of our shadow. Yes, maybe we can befriend it. Because like I said, there's a whole Kelly that I don't get to see as often, that the world doesn't get to see as often, because she's been repressed, because she's been through a lot, and she's been, pushed down for what have you, from childhood trauma and other relationship trauma that I've been through. There's a certain creativity, expressiveness that I have not been able to share with the world through those experiences. So giving myself that grace, that opportunity to connect with that side has allowed me to really express those darker emotions and those darker memories a little bit more mindfully, in that I'm able to then see myself in a different light. I can see myself in a whole picture, because then I can integrate, oh, okay, well, I didn't notice, that I was repressing my creativity for that long. Why? Am I insecure? Yeah, maybe there's some insecurity there. Is it some image issue? Is it some expression issue? It's something that you can then sit with and work through and realize, okay, maybe that there is something here. Because when you don't, it does tend to manifest itself in ways that are unknown to you, or almost uncontrollable, at least in my experiences. Um, so anger has been one of them, in ways that I don't express anger, and I have a lot of anger associated with my grief. And if I don't express that in a healthy way, then in my closer relationships, it can come out in times when I'm not wanting to, when I'm not willing for it to take that relationship on that tangent. So if I'm more mindful about when is the appropriate times to express that anger, how much anger I have in me, what does that anger feel like? What does it even like taste like, and just experiencing the rawness of it in a way that's just a little bit more mindful, and then having compassion for myself for having that anger. It's okay. It's one emotion that we all feel. And everyone has a different story, a different relationship with it. And the main purpose of the shadow work is to understand your relationship with it, understand your relationship with grief, understand your relationship with shame, with guilt, with betrayal, all these things that can cause malices in our behavior, in our personality at different times as we go throughout our lives.
Well, I know that Suzette is her
Mhm.
women's circle in I don't know which day, but also centers around, well, it centers around sacred rage.
Right.
And sometimes I think, as you mentioned, right, maybe not feeling, maybe not expressing that anger, and also not channeling it, but also misdirecting it, right, as you
Hmm.
said, which could potentially sabotage or tarnish a relationship or situation when that anger actually may have actually absolutely nothing to do with that relationship, right? It might have something to do with a past trauma, cultural conditioning, all this. I think of just, it's not just necessary, right? It's not even just necessarily um, relationships or trauma, but just conditioning in today's world. Like,
Right.
this is the way you're supposed to be. Well, I'm not like that. So how do I fit in? And then you're carrying shame and guilt around this particular maybe aspect or element of your psyche, and maybe a behavior trait one might have, right? Not necessarily you,
Mhm.
right? I'm just like, I'm talking
Yeah.
in general population. You're walking around carrying these feelings around. So what is and what is, what, why was grief chosen for this particular? Are we working through all the emotions in the Dark Goddess retreat with, or will you be also? I mean, because as you mentioned, when you grief can bring up anger for you. Do you find that often for, I could see often actually, but do you find that often when you're working with clients? Do you mostly work with women or do you work with both?
No, this is actually my first only women's grief circle, so I'm very
Okay.
honored. I'm very honored to hold that. I believe that will add an incredibly special dimension to it. We are bringing in a dark goddess as well. We're going to bring Isis into the circle and talk about her story through the grief and loss of her husband, brother Osiris, and how she used that to transform. Her ability to heal through magic. And we're kind of going to use that as an example, as an archetype of what we can each do in our own lives. How can we transform this grief and the other feelings that are associated with it into more healing through what we call, magic or just, shadow work, working through it consciously, mindfully. You are technically going through an alchemical process where you're transforming that anger into something more constructive. For me, it's peace. And it's almost an opposite. It has an opposite effect, anger and peace. Well, if I can sit with the anger that I know is associated with my grief, allow myself to feel those emotions, go to Susie's ecstatic dance where I have the safe space to unleash those emotions in a healthy way, then I can really understand an aspect, an archetype of myself through that of how I am. Because otherwise, I don't really tend to scream. I don't really rage. I don't even really cry that much for how much I've been through. So when I allow myself to really feel those emotions, I see a side of myself that I don't typically know, that others that know me very well don't typically know. And I'm able to integrate that side into my behavior in a little bit more of a healthy way. I'm able to understand my triggers. I'm able to understand what activates me, what motivates me, what can like surface my repressed emotions a little bit more because I'm technically surfacing my repressed emotions. I'm taking time, I'm taking mindful action in order to do that, just to explore them, just to, like if you're thinking like little surfacing bubbles in a pond or whatever, you're just sitting there and you're just popping them one by one, seeing what they unleash. Um, and when you do that, um, it allows you to be more comfortable in the waters that you're swimming in on a day-to-day basis. And allows you to be more comfortable in your own skin. At least that's what I have found it through my own practice. And grief is obviously a heavy burden. It's usually quite repressed in most people. So in order to have the opportunity to share it in a circle, really allows you to almost deburden yourself or at least just unload some of that weight on again a little bit more of a tangible level. So it brings, if anything, this revelation that what you are dealing with is not so succumbing. It's not so all-encompassing and overwhelming that it can be talked about. It can be expressed. And maybe there is something more to it than just grief, than just anger, than just betrayal. I lost a partner of 4 years when I was 21. That's why I moved to Louisville. And I mean, the reason why that grief is so strong and all those other emotions are there is because there's also love. It's because there's also joy. It's because I have spent the time with him that I was allotted in the grace that it gave me to. It's because we did love each other. And that's not something to mitigate. It's part of my story. It's part of my being. He forever will shine in the world through me. And the way he went was very, very tragic. And that's the guilt that I have associated with it, the betrayal I have associated with it. And I work through these. I work through these in a mindful way, in order for them to not be as present in my future relationships. It's only now that I'm really able to kind of open my heart enough to allow someone in for that. And in order to do that, I want to come from a place that's, again, a bit more compassionate. And in order to be compassionate for my lover, for my partner, for my friends, for my family, I have to be compassionate for myself. So this self um, kind of these insecurities that you feel in holding this grief and holding these burdens, can really put a damper on the narratives that you tell yourself, on the just the mind trap, the circles, the endless mental patterns that we can really get ourselves into that create a negative self-image, that create negative behavior. And in order to break those cycles, it takes mindful action. And I believe that's the kind of work that we're doing here. I believe that this grief circle is a great way to start out the event, because it's a way to honor what we carry. And we all come into this event, into any of these events, all carrying what we've had through our story, all carrying our trauma, our grief, our insecurities, and everything beautiful that we have to offer as well. So in order to recognize that those are, the beauty and the ugly side of ourselves are just two sides of the same whole. And to appreciate and sitting with that whole is kind of something that we're going to be working with. It is that integration of the opposites, that alchemical like transmutation, if you will, that we'll almost be, practicing with in terms of taking our grief, turning it into love, or at least appreciating the love that's within the grief. It's been 12 years since I lost my partner, and I am at a place where I just have so much love for the time that we've had together. I have so much love for what he's offered me and the way that I express myself, the way I smile in the world, the way that I connect with people and make friendships. It's almost like he did. Because I was very shy before him. I was very I was very timid and just not very introverted. And he kind of worked with me on my personality, or at least like I developed some aspects of his personality just from being with him for so long, that now when I connect with people, I'll surprise myself and just say something that I'm like, oh, whoa, it was just like, it was just like Patrick. And it's a way for me to like find joy, to find love in that heavy loss. And I think that's really important in terms of the anger that is associated with my grief in general, and outside of just Patrick. There's other things there, of course, just like everybody's. Their story of grief is a blend of all of the experiences that they have been through, associated with it. My anger definitely can be turned into peace, or I can find peace in it by just understanding the complexities of it. I can understand some origins of it just by basically like a self-study, going in, where do I feel this anger? I'm irritated with this right now. What is it telling me? Like when these moments hit you, and you somebody says something and that irritates you, if you can, try to take a minute and take a deep breath and be like, oh, why did that hit a button? And maybe you could work through something. And especially with breath work, in that deep breath, that's how I find some peace in it, because I take a breath like, okay, I realize this today. And there's some acceptance, there's some peace in that acceptance, and in accepting myself and accepting who I truly am. Because all of my story, all of my grief, all of my emotions make up who I am. None of them are wrong. they can be expressed in difficult ways sometimes. But we're learning about ourselves so that we can express ourselves in authentic and mindful and compassionate ways.
Yeah, I love that. So when I think about this circle or is and you do the sound curation and you're a yoga instructor, are you weaving all of these elements together when you come into these circles? Or is it like what kind of container do you create for people to, be able to drop down and surrender, feel safe enough to like finally take a look? Right, go within. It's difficult, right? First, I mean, I know like people are going, they run so ragged, right?
Yeah.
And it's a great way to distract ourselves from all of those feelings and sensations and questions that may run behind the real. Does that, you know what I mean? Like it's back
Absolutely.
there, but then we will keep ourselves from going back there by staying overly busy, but TV, Netflix, zoning out on digital screens, and so how do you create that container in your circles
Mhm.
for for people to just like, oh, okay, I can let go, I can go within, I can relax, and I can open up and be vulnerable so that I can let this shit go
Yeah. That's a great question.
and transmute
Uh,
it.
yeah, exactly. And that's a great question. I bring some breath work into it, but mostly it's just discussion. I'll have like a topic for my grief circles, and I'll go into the topic and just really kind of introduce, the importance of sharing grief in whatever way is that you are called for. I also make sure that everybody is understood that this is an optional practice. That if they are just there to receive, if they're just there to share in others' grief and not necessarily share their own grief, then they're providing a service that is immeasurable. Because with anyone who does share, they really are just kind of unloading themselves in a very vulnerable way, and that can sit heavy. That gets absorbed by everybody else into the room. So it's really powerful to be one of those vessels. And so I definitely stress the importance of that and the significance of that. And I first start by sharing my own story. And I do it, I kind of do it circle by circle. This one, again, I'm going to be bringing in the aspect of Isis, so we'll be looking into her story as well. And then I will start by sharing my story. And in my own grief, I have found just a lot of inspiration into the work that I've done now. And I believe that I try to instill that into the room. I instill hope into the room. And I do it in a way where people can see both sides of the coin here, where people can see the sadness and the traumatic effect of the grief, but also see what compassion you're allowing yourself for even coming to a circle like this, because it is so brave, it is so mindful, and you're showing yourself so much grace by doing this kind of work. So when you come to these circles, just that in itself is so brave. And it really does, and it should instill some ease into those that are about to share. And again, there's nobody is ever pressured to share. It's not what this is about. This work is really to only be done mindfully when you are able to, as you are able to, because everybody's at a different part in their own journey. And every grief circle that I've had has been very impactful. It's also been very inspiring for those that have gone to it. The main goal is to feel lighter, is to feel a little bit more connected with yourself, with your own story, with your own experiences, and with those around you who have shared. And know that you're not alone in grief. You're not alone in everything that is accompanied with your grief. Um, that it is an aspect of the general story of the soul, a very integral aspect of this, so-called hero's journey that we're each are on, and we're each just one archetype um, kind of mirrored or arrayed on that exact journey. Every story is different. All of our experiences, all of our memories are different. We come from different backgrounds and different cultures, but we're all here to experience the same evolution, to experience the same ups and downs that in life that can be very colloquial, very tangible within ourselves. So hearing someone else's story, it might resonate with yours. Hearing my story, it might resonate with, hers. And that might inspire her to say, oh, okay, I'm gonna now talk about that, or I didn't even think about that. I wasn't ready to talk about that, but maybe I can talk about this. And that has happened so much in my grief circles. And that's where you really unlock the aspects of yourself that you didn't know were available, that you didn't know were needing of healing, of needing of awareness. And that's when I really know that my work is being applied in a way that I curated it to be, because it's all about self-discovery. It's all about just healing through your own inner work. And that's what shadow work really is. That's what grief
I
work is.
recently I have a client who lost her son to a motorcycle accident last, I don't know if it was last year. I think it's already been 2 years, actually. I think it's been 2 years. And uh, Robin Alexovich and I were hosting a sound bath kind of movement evening over at Fox Hollow I don't know, maybe it was March or April. I can't remember. It was one of those 2 months. And another gal was there who also had lost her son to a motorcycle accident, like both soon after they got their motorcycles. And I know that I was like, oh my gosh, I have this friend and who lost a motorcycle a year ago to the one gal at the sound bath a couple weeks ago. I was like, maybe, I don't know, would you be interested in meeting? And I know they had lunch together and it was just so incredibly healing for them because neither one of them had a friend who'd also and so when you can share that
Hmm.
um, with somebody else, something similar, a story that feels similar or has sparked similar sensations. It's just nice to know you're not alone. And it almost feels like you've got somebody to hold your hand to continue walking with you, even if you're not holding their hand, right? Like you are not alone. And I guess I'm also curious, did the loss of your partner, did that birth the grief circle? Was that part of, because so many times I don't know if you've read the book Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser, but and then the subtitle is How Difficult Times Make Us Grow or Help Us Grow. And it's
Hmm.
an amazing book, but she talks about how often there's just this catalyst, right? That will urge us forward. And in her case,
Absolutely.
it was a divorce, but it could be the loss, it could be a bankruptcy, it could be a career change. But sometimes it's not by choice. It's like the
Right.
rug has been pulled out from under us and we have no choice but to move forward. And then I had a therapist here, and if you've been here 12 years, she was She just moved to Sedona a while back. She was a metaphysical counselor. Her name was Rebecca Martin. Were you familiar with her name?
No.
Such an amazing woman. And I remember talking to her and she would often say, we come here to teach what we need to learn.
hmm
And so, what did that birth this idea of the grief circles, or were you working with grief prior to your loss?
I was not actually. I wasn't working with grief even 10 years after my loss. So
Mm.
he passed away in 2014. It was 2024 when I started my grief circles, when I started really doing my own grief work. So yeah, I that 10 years of repressed emotions really it really manifested itself. And that's why I speak from experience of I got married and divorced in that time. I lost my best friend of 10 years. That was a catalyst. So yeah, I 100% agree with her. There usually is a catastrophe or a crisis moment, or in tarot, we call it a tower moment, that happens, that the structure that we built, that we've known, that we were accustomed to, that we were familiar with, that we were comfortable in our entire lives gets destroyed. And it usually gets destroyed in a violent way. It usually gets destroyed in a way that's more crisis or catastrophe driven. Um, I just say violent because of the tarot card. So then your tower falls, your structure that you created falls, and you're left, with the rumble, like you're left with the debris of it all. And you know, you look up and you see for the first time the stars. Um, Stars only come out at night. You can see them once your tower is removed from that obstruction. Um, the star comes after the tower in tarot in order to offer some hope, but also to connect us to this universal cycle. Again, that now that the rug has been pulled out from under us, now that the tower has fallen, we have the opportunity to rebuild. We have the opportunity to make whatever we want out of this situation, and we do it by learning through crisis, by learning what we have experienced, and to understand ourselves through that experience, understand how we can know ourselves better by what we just experienced. We can take the rubble, we can take the debris, and we can use it to build a stronger foundation. And that's how we can carry ourselves forward. So no, my crisis moment that really started my healing journey and my yoga journey was through divorce and a loss of a friend because I was depressed before the divorce. So I lost her just in lack of communication. And also I injured myself. I have a chronic back injury. So that's really what got me into yoga. And I went to Inner Warrior and I saw there a flyer for my path to flow in 2024, and it happened to be held at Terrapin Hill Farms. Well, Terrapin Hill Farms was actually where I came here from Philadelphia back in 2024 to a or 2014, excuse me, to a music festival. So after Patrick passed away, which was in February of 2014, I then came to Louisville to visit his aunt, and she took me to Terrapin Hill Farm during his birthday weekend in order to, heal, to get me out of the house, to turn a new page, essentially. And that's exactly what it did. The experience was so transformative that it transplanted me from Philadelphia to Louisville. And I moved in with friends that I met at Terrapin. So then 10 years later, to be handed, another moment where I was lacking in the support system. I was just at another crisis moment with my injury and what have you, to then be given another opportunity to heal on that farm, now in a way a little more mindful with yoga and what have you, good for my back. It was a full circle moment. It really was. And it allowed me connect to the cycles of healing, to the cycles of grief, because healing, in general is not a linear process. It's a cyclical one. Growth is a cyclical process. Grief is a cyclical process. We find ourselves back here in the same places, in the same depressions and ascensions. It's never really a straight line, and you can't really count on that. What I like to say is if I can find myself at a certain point, at a certain like phase on that cycle, and realize, okay, I'm in a better position than I was here last time, then that's growth to me. Um, that's making progress in my healing journey. So here we are, 2 years later. I'm still doing grief circles. I'm now a yoga teacher, and sound practitioner. Yeah. And I got into tarot and astrology at the same time, the same day that all of this kind of unfolded with the divorce and the loss of my friend. And again, she just, I didn't lose her to she's still alive. But she's no longer my friend. So when she kind of cut me out of my life, that was really kind of like the big straw. Like, what am I doing here? And now I have similar experiences, but I have a little bit more like ability to honor myself through that and honor myself through these experiences, and it's in a way that where they're less detrimental, and I have more control of my behavior. For example, I had anxiety disorder most of my life, and I haven't had panic attacks in the last 2 years. Really, the breath work, the yoga, and just me being more mindful and compassionate to myself has really helped with that, and just in my relationships in general. So I know that this stuff is working. I see it in me. But everybody is going to have their own story. Everybody's going to have what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And it's about exploring that. It's about having the bravery and the mindfulness to go out and explore that and to be vulnerable. I believe there's so much strength in vulnerability. There is so much liberation in vulnerability if we're able to tap into it and really connect with ourselves on that dimension.
So I know that you're going to be holding the grief circle at the Dark Goddess Retreat next weekend for just your first group, you said, of only women. So that's really exciting. And, that's a unique experience in and of itself. Where else can people find your work? Do you work one-on-one? Do you have a local space?
I don't have a local space, but I can work one-on-one. Absolutely. We can get some tea. We can talk about it. Welcome to like talk in the park. However, we would like to do that. But I do have grief circles. We'll be having more starting in the summer. You can find out information on that on a Facebook group called Grieving with the Seasons. Otherwise, I just have my yoga website and my tarot website, and you can connect with me on any of those emails as well. So
And what about the
yeah.
soundscape curation? Are you,
Yeah, so that's yoga and sound, integratedspirityoga.com.
okay.
And yeah, my information is on there. We can do one-on-one sessions. We can add grief to that. We can do a grief sharing, and then a sound bath afterwards. That's something that I like to host in my grief circles is we have our grief circle, and then I usually have a friend facilitate a sound bath with me. It's been Eric Bray the last couple of times. Becca Truman has been one as well. Um, so that's just a nice way to offer your body some rest and reprieve after going through the motions of expressing yourself in such capacity. It's really nice to just kind of sit and resonate in those energies and to integrate what you just uncovered about yourself. myself in a very mindful and as relaxing a way as possible. It helps steady down the nervous system, and it's just a little bit more trauma informed. The yoga that I um, the training that I went through for yoga and sound is trauma informed. So I'm very cautious about what sounds can really ease the nervous system after a conversation as such as that.
I love that. Yeah, it's almost like you're sealing the circle, maybe for lack of a better word, the session.
Hmm.
And yeah, definitely sounds can be so and the kind of sounds can definitely impact the body and the nervous system in different ways. I know I love a good sound bath. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I think this is really important work for just the collective consciousness, right? If we're carrying all this stuff, we can't show up as our best selves in relationship, in our work, out in the community. And so, the lighter we feel, the lighter the world will feel. And I'm just
Yeah.
really grateful for the work that you're doing. And I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor. I really appreciate you setting the tone for me here and just doing a wonderful job at interviewing everybody. I appreciate the work that you're doing too, just being mindful, getting everybody's stories out, getting the word out. It's very beneficial because, like you said, the more people that we can get, in touch with this side and can do this work, the lighter the world will be and more compassionate and mindful, hopefully, the world can be. It starts with us.
Yeah, it does. And there's that ripple effect,
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for being with me today. And make sure you guys who are out there listening, be sure to check out Kelly's website and her information, her Facebook group, Grieving with the Seasons. All of her social media links will be in the show notes below. And then be sure to check out the Dark Goddess Retreat information if you all are interested in, taking that next step on your healing journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.